Hey there, kids. Coach Patrick, Endurance Nation, back with the fourth and final installment of the Road to Kona series here as I uncover the key elements to being successful on the Big Island and talk to you a little bit about my journey across the past 10 years, or rather 12 years, and my 10 consecutive trips to Kona, except for the time when I broke my hip in a bike crash and then broke my collarbone in a bike crash. The moral of the story, don't ride your bikes with me. In this episode, I'm going to be talking to you a little bit about the mental toughness required to be successful on the Big Island, preparation and toughness. I'm telling you about it now so you can be prepared, but there's definitely some elements on the day that benefit those who are stronger than others, and I'm hoping to impart some of that guidance to you today. By no means do I consider myself an expert on the island, but I can say that I have suffered there more than most of the pros, not just from the time it takes me to do the course, but the fact this is my 10th time and not too many pros these days last that long. Without further ado, of course, let's do our little medal excerpt again. This has got to be one of my first trips, maybe 06, 07. It was back when Ford was doing it. And they went with the red, white, and blue, because Ford, because America, right? Of course, the medal is made in the USA. Really important that we say that as well. And that's the medal itself right there. You can see little sort of cursive Kona, Hawaii. Somebody can run there with the icons. This is all raised, and then the red, white lei flowers here as well. Very pretty. Unfortunately, no date on the medal. That's kind of a bummer, right? Like you don't know what year that was. But I do know it was the year that Ford did it. So anyway, kind of a neat little medal. Not quite the same stature as, some of the other medals that we have laying around here from the World Championship. But we don't do it for the medals, right? We do it for the memories. And we're going to talk a little bit about making some of those memories today. Let me put that medal down. So for me, one of the things that really sets Kona apart from all the other races is that it's a really level playing field. Even the most experienced athletes who go there to compete will wake up on race morning with butterflies. They'll feel sick. They're going through the same thing that you experience when you do your races back home. And you'll also have the same experience, which is to say that the race itself, the grandness of the race, the weight of the race, the weight of expectations you placed on yourself, all the training you've done, it all comes to here. And while you're not a pro and your livelihood does not depend on your performance here, you still want to do well and you still feel some of that pressure. And so the reason why I wanted to talk about mental focus is that everybody who races in Hawaii is experiencing it. Everyone is struggling, even the veterans. And how you handle it is a key part to being successful in the day. Okay. So first and foremost, you need to know that the stress that you're feeling now about training for Kona, 4 weeks out, 6 weeks out, 8 weeks out, a year out, whenever you qualified, got your spot. It's real. And you'll be feeling that almost all the way to the race. You're going to feel inadequate. You'll say, when I qualified for Kona, I did X. So I'm going to go to Kona, I need to do 2X, right? I don't have open water swimming like this, so I've got to come up with some modified thing. I'm feeling inadequate that I can't do it. Truth be told, it's really hard to replicate the conditions of Hawaii unless you move to a tropical island or go train in Hawaii. And believe it or not, many of these pro athletes do. What are there, like 60 pro men that race? You don't even know 55 of them, but they will be living in Thailand. They'll be living in Cambodia. They'll be in Kona. They're at altitude. They've been training for months in hot places, getting ready for this race. And that's one of the ways that they cope with preparing for this situation, which is, trying to acclimatize themselves, both mentally, physically, and emotionally to the experience that they're going to have on the Big Island. There's nothing like walking off of that plane on the tarmac and just getting punched in the face with the heat and say, oh, it's for real. It's on, right? Like you lose 2 pounds just getting your suitcase to the rental car. But that anxiety and the kind of feeling of overwhelm, it's going to be there not only in your buildup, but also on the island. So expect it. Know that it's going to be there and embrace it. You have to kind of have your mantra. I've done the work. I am prepared. I earned my way here. I will be okay. This is new to me, but it is not unknown to me. And I'm going to find my own path to being successful here. But that self-confidence comes slowly and is often not really felt in the first trip. So I want to give you some guidance on that. So the real place where I start to see the anxiety be a problem is in tapering, where athletes will start to do more and more despite being close to the race. or they get jumbled with their training just because of logistics. They're using a bike shipping service, and now they have to get rid of their bike super early as they're doing all this extra training, or they read somewhere that so-and-so did this crazy run, so they want to do that as well. When you get to a space where you're trying to be successful on the Big Island, go back and take a look at your own data, ground yourself in that performance and what you're able to do, and the work that allows you to be successful, and take comfort in knowing that those numbers work to get you here, and they're probably the same numbers or close to them. They're going to help you to be successful. Unless you have direct performance on the Big Island, it's really hard to draw a line from one year to the next. But you can go back and look at the work that you've done to get here and use that as a baseline. So that will help you see just training the run work one way for you, training the bike work one way. When did you taper the swim? What did it look like? What did you get? Etc. Yada yada yada. Use your training experience and previous race experience as the grounding element that allows you to stay inside of yourself and executing the workouts that matter and will help shape your day into a success. Another key element is having a good race week plan. There's tons of events. There's parades, there's expo, you want to see people, you want to do certain swims, there's an underpant run. Before you get to the Big Island, do yourself a favor and kind of sketch out what you think is reasonable. Then delete half of it, because then it is reasonable. And then do that. Like, you have your plan, you're like, Wednesday I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna ride my bike from here and run there. Then do that. Don't wake up on Wednesday and you see a text from your friends or a Snapchat or something and it says you gotta go here, do that, and you're gonna change everything and make it all up. There's not a lot of time in the day. There's precious little room to get stuff done. And if you start filling it with stuff or changing your routine, things can go wrong. So make out that plan, have a little room built in for flexibility, but then follow that plan so you've got some sense of knowing what's coming and what you're trying to achieve each and every single day en route to being successful on the race itself. That routine of having a plan and following that plan and sort of accomplishing that plan on a daily basis can deliver a great deal of calmness to you and a sense of order that will help keep you sane in the environment that is the Big Island, right? Another key element, I mentioned this before on the run, but I'll say it again here, is just to be positive. The people of Hawaii are just amazing. They've opened their island, their home, their spiritual home to us. It's important that we also pay that forward as well and be open and kind and smiling and friendly. And I find that's just a great way to walk around the island. These people are your tribe and they're super awesome. But if you want to be all sullen and internally focused and not want to talk to anybody, nobody will talk to you either. They'll just leave you alone, bro. But that's a crappy place to go to paradise and have all these people and never talk to any of them. So be friendly, chat people up, ask them where they're from, share your story, listen to theirs. All that stuff is really, really important. And I think an opportunity for us to connect with our peers from around the world, people who hold the same things that we hold, important and close to their hearts as well. And so it's just a great place to do that. So don't miss out, right? And I think that positivity is also contagious, right? You can catch positivity from someone, you can give it, you smile at someone and they smile back at you and they gave you a smile, now you're smiling even more, right? Pretty soon you'll have like a smile cramp by the time you get to race day, but it doesn't matter. In terms of thinking about your guidance here, what did I write down? Mental race week. I think one of the elements that you can really focus on race week is putting yourself mentally in the space where you're going to be on race day. So you can be running on that last little bit of a li'i, you could be biking out to Hawaii, you could be swimming out on the course and say, okay, when I'm here on race day, it's going to be hour X, minute Y, zone whatever, and kind of put yourself in that position and try and be really dialed in contextually so that when you do get to that place on race day, you can say, I've been here before, this is how I felt. This is not new to me, or I've been here before, I know what I need to do now, I've got this mental cue because I walked myself through it in race week. Just like, golfers would go out and play the course before, or basketball players get to go out and play hoops before the game. You too have an opportunity to explore the course while you're there. Use that to your advantage and help set reasonable expectations for performance, or perhaps also strategic cues. If you're going to hit Palani, I say to myself before race day, I am walking the hill at Palani. I am. So if I get there and I start walking, it's not failure. I'm executing my plan, right? Or when I'm running back in from the energy lab, I'm like, I've got to really stay strong on these hills and watch my cadence. That's what I'll do on my test run or my training run. And that's exactly what I'm going to attempt to do on race day. So use that recon stuff as an opportunity to align both what you want to do from an execution standpoint with the reality so that you have that from a mental execution standpoint, you've got that trigger that's going to allow you to be successful at that point. And we take the emotional side of your brain out of it. We just say, when I hit Pilani, I walk. I don't care how I feel about walking. This isn't a conversation about, is it cool or not cool to walk? Do I look good or do I not look good walking? It's, am I walking like I said I was? Yes, great, and success, and I move on, because that's ultimately what keeps me successful on the day itself, okay? Another key piece that's really important is just to expect difficulty. So we always like to say inside the team, no highs, no lows, right? So the minute you start feeling great, you got to check yourself, you're missing something. The minute you feel terrible, you're probably a gel or a couple short walking steps away from feeling fine. In Kona, there'll be times where you feel great and all systems are going, you're flying along. Or there'll be times when you are just suffering so badly and you don't understand what's happening and it's just so hot and hard and slow. You're only a couple minutes away from it completely changing with the weather and the environment. So if you're feeling great and you're zipping out, expect that things are going to get harder. If I told you there was hail in Javi, expect crazy wind, expect it. Because if it's not there, you win. But if it does show up, you're ready for it. But don't go through the race imagining that you somehow dodged a bullet or that you don't have to deal with things being hard, because you're missing something. Something will be hard out there, and we need to be ready for it. So don't be surprised if your stomach feels bad. We've already told you about it. I've given you troubleshooting steps for it. You should be ready for your stomach to go bad, so you have a plan in place on how you're going to address that, so we don't run into a situation where you have a small problem, but your actions magnify that into an issue that becomes almost insolvable and within the context of the race itself, and really forces you to slow down, okay? I think that piece about expecting difficulty, expecting problems is super important. Expect that return trip to town to be windier than you had planned, because if it's not, that's great. And if it is, you know what to do. But set it high. I think it's that false sense of security, like, oh, I made it past, the bridge full of sharks with lasers on their heads. And you're looking back over your shoulder, so happy you survived that bridge, and then you fall into a snake-infested pit and you're still dead, right? Nobody wants that. So really expect it to come and be ready for it and have those plans in place, which I'll get to that in a second. And then the last piece here is kind of that mental swim, bike, and run. And what I think about that is, what are your mental cues on all three of those legs? What makes you be a good swimmer from a mental perspective? What keeps you focused? Same for the bike, same for the run. You may have cues out there for a specific place on the course, as I mentioned earlier, or perhaps a specific time. You have markers you're also managing that are objective around heart rate, power, pace, perceived exertion. Those are also important numbers to have in play. But ultimately what I'm talking about here is being able to have a strategy we've written out and then executing against that strategy. So you're saying, hey, here I wanted to ride 200 watts. I'm riding 200 watts right now in this space. It's not giving me the speed I want because of this headwind and I'm kind of hot, but I'm running the numbers I'm supposed to ride. That's a win. You are in control of that situation because you have a plan and you're executing against that plan. If things go wrong, if the wind's too strong and there is no wind and you need to modify things, then less wind means you're in the bonus. You had your plan, you planned for the worst. It's better than the worst. Go forward, waiting for that next ball to drop. But if things are harder than you anticipated, then you have a baseline plan in place and we can begin the process of troubleshooting that plan and finding a way to be more successful. Athletes who don't have that baseline plan in place really don't have a foundation upon which they can make more decisions. If they don't have that strategic plan in place, then they're just saying, oh my God, I'm running, I'm thirsty, I should drink. And they're kind of making things up as they go. And that may work for a short term, but in the context of a long day in the Ironman World Championships course, finishing with this difficult run with the heat and the wind, and then later on perhaps even some cooler weather and darkness, it's not the kind of event that you can win. So when you think about the race execution stuff, you've got your race plan. We can implement mental cues across the way to keep you focused. But we also need those mental toughness pieces that are going to allow us to stay strong, even when things aren't going well. And there'll be times on the day when you feel like you cannot keep going. So those are the mental places where you start playing those games. Your body says, I need to walk now. And so you have to say, all right, body, what if we just ran to that, rock over there? What happens? Let's agree, we can get to that rock, right? And you run to the rock and your body says, okay, I want to stop. And you can say, yeah, but we're halfway to that next aid station right there. So I'm just going to run until that aid station. And you're having this interplay, and that comes from engaging that mental voice, having a plan, and creating that dialogue, that rapport within which you can start affecting your outcome because you're familiar with it. If you are not mentally dialed in and things start to go wrong for you, when that voice does speak up, it's the voice of authority. You've never contested it, you've never pushed on it, and all of a sudden you're making decisions that are very defensive and can ultimately change the very fundamental nature of your race and put you in sort of this protection mode, which at times can be valuable if you're really in trouble, but generally speaking, we're never really in that much trouble. It can really slow you down. So I think on the swim, bike, run side, having those mental cues for each discipline is important, but also being prepared to troubleshoot each discipline so that you know what you'll do if your goggles come off, what to do if you get a flat tire, what to do if you drop your nutrition or your salt, what to do if you get a calf cramp on the run. You can kind of go through a disaster plan for each of those, do a pre-mortem, as we like to call it here inside the team, and be successful. Ultimately, you need to understand that as challenging as anything is, if all systems are go in terms of the functionality of your day from equipment and so on, then it's really all up here and a little bit down here as well, of keeping moving forward, challenging yourself and knowing that you're going to be okay, knowing that as hard as this effort is right now, it's not going to last, and that you can push through. Part of this race is pushing through to new bounds, and while you may be an accomplished racer or endurance athlete in your neck of the woods or where you've competed before, Kona is a different animal, and we really need to be all in with our game so that we can be as successful as possible. Waiting for something to play itself out is really letting opportunities go by, ones that you may not really realize in the moment, but you will certainly regret later if you were unprepared for the work to come. So as you think about Kona, I want you to think about the mental aspects of being successful and what it means to create a plan against which you can execute your day. Inside Endurance Nation, all of our athletes have race reports, which are tools that we use to make sure we've got the right checklist in place and we've got the right zones, etc. But a portion of every race plan is that unknown, is that anxiety piece, is dealing with challenges that have arisen before. And we write those plans so that every year, every time we do race, we can iterate upon them and make them better and better. So while you may not be a veteran on the Big Island, that doesn't mean you can't do the research, like listening to a podcast like this one or reading other people's race reports and starting to craft a plan that reflects the reality that you're going to experience on the Big Island. You know it's the real deal. You know it's going to be challenging. You know it's going to be hot. Let's create a race plan, go test the elements of it during race week, and then put it into play with a big smile on your face and a heart full of gratitude. We'll see what the island gives you by the time you make it to the finish line. I'm Coach Patrick from Endurance Nation. I look forward to seeing you behind that finish line where we can high five one another, and if we both have the legs, walk over somewhere, grab ourselves a slice of pizza and a beer, and celebrate what we've accomplished together with all of our friends here at the World Championships in Ironman Hawaii. I want to thank you for joining me for this, our fourth and final Road to Kona episode, part of my 10th trip to Kona promotion, where we're talking a little bit about what it means to be successful on the Big Island and the components that lie within. We've already done the swim, bike, and run episodes. This was our mental focus episode as well, so please pass it on, share with your friends who are training and racing. If you have questions for me, go over to facebook.com/Endurance Nation. You can put them there up on the site as a message. I'll be happy to answer you soon. And until then, I will wish you the best of tapering. Don't eat too much. I'll see you on the Big Island. I can't wait to race with you. Take care, folks. I'll see you at the races.